cheating and conspiracy to obtain and accept corrupt payments, charges they deny. And that's the news. To visit us online at www.ncnguyana.com.
The news was produced by NCN with internet service provided by GTNT's Lightning Fast DSL.
It is a program which brings you information and facts about a wide variety of topics.
Instinctively, most of us know this, but a human being can live without food for more than a month. But no one, almost no one, because I've heard of some.
Groceries, then visit Bunny's Meat Market on Church Street.
At the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton, where I did chemical engineering. I started working at Linden, which was then Mackenzie, the bauxite operations, which was owned then by Alcan. And I stayed on there after nationalization in 1971 until 1992. And then within that new election in 1992, I had joined with Chedi Jagan and the People's Progressive Party, and I was the Prime Ministerial candidate, and so here I am still as Prime Minister.
So were you the Prime Minister at the time of independence?
No. At the time of independence, it was Forbes Warner. You're talking now back in 1926.
Oh, okay.
If you, for a quick bit of our history in Guyana, as people may know, the people in Guyana, their forefathers were brought here basically for the estates of the day. Initially cotton, coffee, cocoa, but soon after sugar. And so you had the slaves from Africa, and you had then when slavery was ended in 1838, you had, first of all, actually some Portuguese immigrants were brought to replace the slaves on the estate, and then immigrants from India. You may think of it as migrant workers were brought in. And of course there was before the native Amerindians, and then there were also the English mainly who owned the estates then, but previously they were Dutch and French. There are still a lot of Dutch and French named places, but maybe only very few families from those days. And there were Chinese also brought in as migrant labor, indentured migrant labor in the 1860s. So we've had to... Now we have a task of coming together as one people and as a country. We got into adult suffrage in 1953. Or let me step back. We know that there was Chedi Jagan from Port Morant, born in 1918, went to Queen's College, maybe when he was 14, 16, and then later on went off to study at Howard. A friend of his, a long time friend, Juan Dummett, encouraged him to go with him up to the USA. He went to Howard, did his pre-med there, and then he went to Chicago, did dentistry, met Janet Jagan. They got married, or Janet, whatever her name was before, and they got married. And they returned to Guyana towards the end of '43 and got active in social work, and initiated in 1946 the Political Affairs Committee, the PAC, which included Chedi Jagan, his wife Janet Rosenberg Jagan, Ashton Chase, and Jocelyn Hubbard. And just to put it in context, because times have changed greatly, Jocelyn Hubbard was a mulatto, I think a white father, a black mother, and that was a significant social grouping in those days. So here you had a grouping of different peoples, including young Ashton Chase. They formed the Political Affairs Committee, which by 1950 they launched the People's Progressive Party. And then there was a Forbes Burnham who was studying law in the UK, very bright Guyana scholarship holder, winner, and it is said that the leftist socialist groupings and peoples, when he was returning, directed him towards the PPP and Chedi's group and encouraged Chedi and them to have him in. So he came in and soon became the chairman of the PPP. And in 1953, at the first adult suffrage election in Guyana, the People's Progressive Party, with both Chedi and Swabi Burnham, won an unexpected majority, I think 18 out of 24 of the seats. And that was quite unexpected. And then we had that self-governing, internal self-government group, however, was suspended within just over 100 days in October the 9th, I think, in 1953. I think the story goes that a lot of people were infused. Sidney King, now known as U.C. Kayawana, who was Minister of maybe Public Works Department, maybe sat in this same office. One of the quotes was that the governor was still doing things locally, internally, and this was to be internal self-government, and it was quoted there, and he said, this confounded nonsense should stop. So it was seen by the British as a hothead group, when the Americans got scared of another political situation in Guyana. And so the constitution was suspended in 53. Differences in view developed between Chedi and Forbes. Whilst it's obvious they were from two different racial groups in Guyana, I think also they reflected other sentiments, the urban sentiment versus the rural sentiments, and also to some extent the sentiments of, or the language that they would speak and so on would reflect, say, a Christian background in terms of the stories you know and the language you use versus Muslim, Hindu kind of language. And so there was a parting of the ways, which between the two individuals may have been more ideological, or a certain degree of ideology. But however, the country parted, and most of the Afro-Guyanese support the PNC. Eventually it was the PNC, and the most Indo-Guyanese supported the PPP. But let me say again, this was also reflects differences in sentiment between urban living proletariat to kind of workers, dock workers, kind of public servants, versus rural agricultural self-subsistence people who live in that kind of living life. And so whilst
would you say it was, if I can interrupt, would you say it would have been a forced marriage when they were together?
When they were together, it was not a forced marriage, but I would say it might have been infatuation that was not fully aware, because there was the common English. We wanted to throw off the yoke of the English, like India and Ghana, and we wanted to be like Nehru, Gandhi and Nehru and Kwame Nkrumah. But in my view, I think we underestimated greatly, by a huge factor, the challenge of coming together as one people, and the challenge of building the country physically and materially, and making a better life. I think we felt that a better life would come easy, just so, almost the snapping of the fingers or the passing of laws, but it takes much more work. it is my belief, and maybe that's why with the PPP, even from very early days, that that maybe Cherry had a better grasp of what was involved in coming together as a people, and also in building our country materially and making for a better life. I think he had a better grasp, or maybe let us say, my feelings and sense of it is closer to his views than maybe to Forbes.
And how do you see Guyana progressing today?
Oh, well, our president has done much to transform the country. We have done a number of significant things, like the new stadium, the bridge across the Berbice River, and he has sought to ensure that they were done in ways that we could sustain, in terms of having financing that is concessionary, and maybe having a design that is maybe not as flamboyant as others may like, but good enough to do the job and not costing so much that it's not sustainable.
And what do you see as the difficulties and the challenges that you face today?
I think the same two challenges remain, and I guess they're always the challenges for any group, but they're particularly so for us. Coming together as one people, getting enough coherence and cohesiveness in the whole society, on the one hand, and developing the country materially. I think also because of our small population, a lot of costs tend to be very high per head, and we are at a low level of GDP, even though we've doubled GDP in the last 10, 12 years or so. It's still only about $2,000 per person per year, compared with maybe nearly 40,000 in the U.S. and maybe 20 to 40,000 across recognized developed countries. So we're 1/10 or less. So those are challenges.
Now, one of the things, and I see the gap between the industrialized countries and the developing countries getting wider and wider and wider. Is there an emphasis being placed on technology in Guyana?
Yes, but let me say personally that I am. There used to be a debate in the old Encounter magazine, as a magazine on the left side, colonial and so on. They called them progressive back in the 60s, say, about whether development, growth and development is primarily a technical, financial, economic process, or whether it's a social, political process. I did done chemical engineering, so I'm on the technical side. But I would rather say that growth and development is more a social and political process. It's an issue of people's imagination, which relates what they accept and what they do and the drive they have. For those of us who believe in evolution, the mankind, a man, a woman, is extremely well designed in that sense, you could say. But those of us who believe in the evolution more or less come from understand it from the other way, that it was trial and error. Granted, it took a long time, but it was trial and error that came to this design. So to some extent, I am of the view that people have it in themselves to evolve a lot of the systems they need. So even though I will admire and I think that the current technology is fantastic and so on, I would put technology in front as